Hey guys, welcome back to Billy Ray Garage. Today's video we are installing the rear WILWOOD brakes that are right there in the box. And if you give me 2 seconds, boop, here are all the contents from that box right there. So you got brand new rotors, and as you see, I went with the stock setup. So the e-brake still goes in here, and they do have a kit that has a separate e-brake mount, but we did not go with that because I am not drifting. Maybe yet. Don't know. So anyway, got rotors, got mounting brackets, got 4 piston calipers, boom, boom. Got brake lines, brake pads right there in the back, and stickers that add 10 horsepower to your car when you apply them to your vehicle. So I'm going to get the car jacked up and we'll start taking the wheels off and start prepping this thing and getting it ready to go. Now in this kit, there is some cutting required and maybe the fabrication of a bracket. Me and my friend, we tried doing this the other day and we saw that there was cutting involved, and we didn't want to get that involved because of how far away I was from home at my buddy's garage. Now it's being done in the home garage. But I think I have a plan of attack for this so that we still have to cut, obviously. So the bracket that we have to make, I'm going to see if I could take that dust shield and kind of cut it there and bend it out of the way. Do a little trial and error with that, but if that doesn't work, I have a bracket and I can make it work. So let me jack the car up and get this thing ready to go. If you're ever wondering what the inside of a GTO trunk looks like, that's what it looks like. There's our coilovers, and actually, you can't tell. I think I put this on a little too tight. The bushing's starting to crack. So I'm gonna have to get new ones of those. Can't see this one, but whatever. So yeah, your fuel tank's in here. Awesome. All right, for real, let me jack this thing up and start taking it apart. All right, guys, wheels are off, and yeah, just gotta remove the caliper and the caliper bracket, and the bolts for the caliper are 15 millimeter, and the bracket itself is a 19 millimeter. Now this is an 04. Don't know what size the 0506 is. Let me get all this out, and don't forget to turn your e-brake off so you can get this off. And then I'll see you when this is all taken apart, and I'll explain the cutting process. All right, guys, everything's off. The only thing you will need to keep from whatever you took off is the big bolts for the mounting bracket. For this guy, you gotta save them. You got 2 of them. Now these are original off the car, and it says to reuse the washer. There was no washer on there, so gonna find one. Anyway, back to the task at hand. So what the directions say to do is cut this dust shield down to a 9 1/4 inch diameter. So I don't know how much that is yet. I haven't measured it, but I will show you the reason why you have to cut it. For one, these big boys do not fit between there, so that is part of the reason why you're cutting it. And number 2 reason why is because this rotor is pretty beefy, so let's put it in and see what happens. So it hits the little lip up here, so I wonder if you could just knock that down, like trim some of this and trim some of the bottom. I'm going to try that and cut this little lip off. Let me get that 9 1/4 inch diameter. I don't know how far it goes, but they tell you that if you mount a mounting bracket, you have to leave a little material here to put the bolt through, which is maybe impossible, but we're gonna figure it out. So let me measure. I'll get a little circle made up and then figure out how we want to attack this. All right, guys, got my measurement. So that entire line that goes around down to here, that is about 9 1/4. It's probably a little less than that, so I'll save a little material. I mean, really on this side it doesn't really matter because it's just the bottom. The only concern is really up here, is leaving enough material to put a bolt through if what I want to do does not work. So I'm going to get the grinder out. I'm probably just going to make some lines, just slice it down, and then start grinding around and taking the whole thing off so that we have room. I'm not going to try and shave this down because it doesn't make sense, because once you put the rotor on, it's going to be trapped there, and that's just going to trap heat. So I'm just chopping this whole thing off, and hopefully that works as planned. And we get the grinder set up and we will start chopping. Alright guys, gonna start cutting. So, plan of attack. I'm gonna cut this little section off first. I'm gonna cut a line down here, and then I might go down like this or just go around. I don't know yet, but I'm gonna clean it up when it's done. But I wanna leave as much right in this section as possible, so that just in case I gotta get a bolt through to make a new bracket. So, wish me luck. Alright guys, I think I have accomplished trimming this all down. As you can tell, got most of it in one piece, just made a little score, chopped it and just started bending it, came off. And then I used a grinding disc to clean this all up and make it as flat as possible. Okay guys, got the driver's side done. I did all the trial and error on this side, so I'm going to jump over to the other side, but this is what it looks like when it's done. So, just to update you, I had to rebuild a whole bracket here, and I ended up bolting it into the big bolt that brackets down the caliper bracket. So that worked nicely, and I pushed it forward a little bit, and we have plenty of clearance to get around the wheels, and also it's like pushed back this way so that we have clearance of the wheel, because the way they described building that bracket, it would be too tall and the hose, the brake line hits the wheel, so that's a big issue. So I fabricated a bracket, and I'm going to go in the garage. I'm going to show you how to build that same bracket and the material I used. Just a Home Depot bracket, similar to this but bigger. I need a bigger one, so I got to remake it. So I'm going off to Home Depot, I'm going to get this bracket, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did to make this bracket. Alright guys, before we build this bracket, I'm going to do a couple things first. Disconnect the brake line and reconnect it and put it back up here. And then we're going to cut this little piece that we saved to try and make a new bracket. We're just going to cut that off, and you're going to drill a hole right there so we can throw a bolt through it, a nut and a bolt, hold it together. And then once we do that, we will build that bracket. Alright guys, just got back from Home Depot, bought one of these little right angle brackets. As you can tell, it stands up like that, but we got to modify it. Now I traced it out with a marker, so I'm going to cut it about here, drill a giant hole here for the caliper bolt, the bolt that goes to the caliper mounting bracket. So we got to drill a big hole for that one. We're going to trim a little bit of this corner here so that we can cut it and bend this down to try and get that right angle like that, where the bracket for the brake line is going to sit. And then you come up top, you're going to cut it across the top here, drill a hole, and this line on the side, I'm just going to trim it down a little bit extra because obviously this one's a little thinner. Let me get drilling and cutting and show you what I got. Alright guys, first I'm going to start by drilling this hole up top. I'm just using a 1/4 inch bit because I have a 1/4 inch nut and bolt that I'm going to use right here to hold this bracket down. Now I already drilled the bracket out, so that's going to sit like that. Actually, it's going to be facing backwards like that. So when the brake line comes in, it goes in here. You put the pin in the side, that little fork, shove it through the side, and your brake line comes in here. So let me drill that out, and then we'll go to the bottom one, and then we'll start chopping. Alright guys, got our little hole drilled. I'm going to drill a pilot hole here, and then make a big hole there for the bolt for the caliper bracket. So I'm going to drill that out, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright guys, got the bracket drilled out with the hole that we want. Here's the bolt for the caliper mounting bracket, so just get it enough to get in there. That's all you're going to need. Now, like I said on this one, I had to trim it down a little bit where the mark is to make it smaller, because kind of want all the room you could get in there. So if you could find these a little slimmer, that'd be great, but I couldn't find them anymore, so I had to go with the thick boy. So now I'm going to get the grinder out. I'm going to cut across that line, clean this up here, and cut it across right there so we have a small little piece. And then I'm going to slim this thing down because you want all the room you can get on this. So the slimmer it is down here, the better. It won't hit the caliper. So let me grind, and then I'll show you about making the slit here and bending this. Alright guys, got this thing slimmed down, it's drilled out, it's rounded off on the corners, deburred, all that stuff. So, like I said, when you mount this thing, it's going to be going on the caliper mounting bracket. So the bracket's going to be on the inside, the bolt's going to come through, it's going to act as a washer, you're going to bolt it in, and you're going to kind of rock it forward like that. Kind of like this example is. So the reason why I cut some of this out is to bend it down and have a flat platform for that bracket for the brake line to sit on. So I'm going to trim this the littlest bit right here, and then I'm going to hit it with a hammer, and also I offset it out so it just has plenty of clearance from the wheel, from the rotor, and all that fun stuff. So let me trim that up and I'll show you what it looks like, and I'll show you the process of how to bend it into place. Alright guys, got my slit about 2/3 of the way through, so what I'm going to do now is hit it with a hammer and try and just rock it back, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. So what you're going to do is take a big hammer and just hammer. Okay, so as you guys can see, it's kind of angled now. I'm going to work it a little more and see if I get it a little more angled for when I mount that bracket. Okay, so now that I got it about the angle I want, I also want to kick it to the inside of the car. So I'm going to hit it with the hammer and work it over just a littlest bit, just so we have plenty of clearance. That should be good. It only has to be a little bit. Okay, I got it about where I want it. So you have a little lip up here. I'm just going to trim that down and clean it up nice, and then I'll mount that little bracket on here so it's ready to go in the morning when I go to finish this job up. Alright guys, just want to show you how the bracket's going to be set up. I'm going to show it to you when I'm putting everything together, but figured while I got you fabricating the bracket, oh yeah, by the way, finished product right here. So it's going to go on the inside of the vehicle with this bolt through it for the caliper bracket, and then obviously the caliper bracket's going to be something like that. Nope, something like that. It's going to be like that. So it's going to be leaning forward like that. So it actually sits like this, straight up, and then this is going to go forward. And then once you get everything set up, your line's going to come into here. And then you'll put your spacers on, whatever you got to do. When you put it on a little loosey-goosey so you could adjust it. But again, I will show you in the morning when I go to finish the passenger side of the vehicle. Now you can see it's got a little offset. It goes off to the side. That's the way you want it. So it gets away from the rotor, gets away from the caliper, gets away from everything, gets away from the wheel. And the further out it is this way, the more the line kind of shapes around and you can shape it in. See you guys tomorrow when we go to button this thing up and go through with the rest of the process of installing the rear WILWOOD brakes. Alright guys, next morning we're going to put on the rear passenger side WILWOOD brake. So I got a little bracket made. We're going to put that bracket on. When I did the front, I was able to just do exactly what I did on the left-hand side and do it on the right-hand side. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to explain it as we go. Alright guys, we're going to mount the bracket. So as you can see, there's like a little ridge here. That is going to go towards the outside of the car. Put it just like that. Now, on the other side, had just used one washer on the inside of that. So let's see if we can get in here, take a look, see if we can get some light on it maybe. So the washer's going to go here, and the bracket's going to go over the top of it. So I'm going to start these bolts. I'm going to start with one washer, and then I'm going to test everything out, make sure we got good fitment. Alright guys, next you have little spacers for right here. On the other side I use 3 on each. You might have to play with it yourself. I'm going with 3 on the initial use and see if we, oops, that's the wrong one. So I'm going 3 on this one. I'm going to put the caliper on and the rotor. Well, I'm going to put the rotor and then the caliper on. And then we could check for fitment of the brake pads, because that is very important. Also put some lug nuts on so that this is completely pressed against it so you get an accurate measurement. Alright, next you're going to take these 2 little washers, you're going to stick them right here and right here. And these 2 little nuts, you're going to run these down. Now you're going to want to tighten these nuts down all the way and snug, because this thing will rock. So if you put your brake pads in, you'll be like, oh, I have a good fitment. But maybe it won't because it's kind of leaning that way. So when you tighten it up, it's gonna sit like that. So let me crank these down and then we'll move on to putting the pads in. All right guys, we're gonna test fit the brake pads. So just lift this little tab, pull this out. And when you install the brake pads, you got 2 holes there. These little pins actually run through them like that. So let's slide the pad in, see what we got for fitment. Go right there. So the holes here line up with the holes in the pads. Drop you in. That feels a little tight. We may have to remove. All right, let's see. So now you slide these through here, push it down a little more. There we go. So that's through there. Now the best way to test this is obviously spin the wheel. So grab and spin. It's a little tight. So either the outside pad or the inside pad's rubbing. Obviously it's not the inside. When I had the brake pads on, the inside one was loose and the outside one was tight. So actually instead of adding a washer, I had to take the washer out so that it pushed the inside pad further this way and the outside pad out this way. So removed it, remounted it. So I'm gonna do a test fit and then we'll move on to the next part. All right guys, real quick, just wanted to show you what you're looking for on this. So you want your brake pads as close to the top and flush as possible with the rotor. And also you want to check and make sure you have clearance between the rotor and the caliper through down there. I don't know if you could really tell. Let's see if I can zoom in, but probably not, but maybe this angle. So you can see like a little gap up there. That's what you want. You want a little bit of a gap because without these little washers here, it would rub on here. And also another thing, when you're putting the rotor on, they have an arrow pointing to the front. That's what you want to do. All right, let's hook up all our lines because our fitment's good. So we'll prep the back side of this with the elbow and the line, and then eventually we'll put on the bracket and move our way down. All right guys, now we're going to put on the brake line fittings. So you have a 90-degree elbow, which goes only one way into here, and then you have the line that comes to here and goes up, and then you're going to mount this little piece that goes into the bracket into here. Now the directions say to use Teflon tape, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to Teflon tape these up and I'll show you the setup that I'm using. So on the car, the WILWOOD's going to be facing up, obviously the brake's going to be facing up like this. So I want this fitting going straight up like that too. Now I'm going to get to a point where I have it completely vertical on here, but if I need to move it, always tighten it, never loosen it. So if I need a little more one direction, I can twist it a little bit and that should be plenty. So I'm going to Teflon tape these things up, throw them on, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright guys, this is what it looks like. So this is going to be on this side of the car just like this. Our line is locked in here and we should be able to bend in place and stay out of the way. So like I said, I have this going straight up, and if I need to move it a little bit to make the line drop a little bit, I could crank it a little more that way, but you never want to loosen it because you'll have leaks. Let's start getting this ready. Let's get our bracket in place and we will try and wrap this up. All right guys, got our little brake bracket in, and just a quick note, if you have washers on this side or on the inside here, which I don't use, but if you had washers there, what you're going to do is you're going to take one bolt off at a time for the mounting bracket, take it out, red Loctite it, throw it back in, it keeps the washers in place, and then go to the next one and do the same thing, or they'll drop out and you'll be MFing this thing. So let me throw the rest of it together and then we'll work on the brake line. All right guys, we are set up, we are good, and just to prove that the brakes are not hanging up, you're going to hear a little rubbing, but it moves freely. So one word of advice, leave the caliper hooked up on the old one just so you don't leak out, because if you don't remember, my car had brake issues for the longest time and they are finally fixed. So they kind of fix themselves. So anyway, don't drain the system out, leave this tied in, and then when you're ready to hook this up, just take it out, put it in through this bracket, and then we'll put the clip in, and then we can go to the bleeding process. All right guys, brake line's hooked up. We're nice and firm in place. Nothing's rubbing, and we should have plenty of clearance. If we don't, I'll loosen this and just slide it forward a little more to get a little more room, but we should be good. I didn't try test fitting it yet, But we have an 18-inch wheel, we should be good. Alright guys, brakes are bled, and good news, the rear fits the stock 17-inch wheel. The only problem is, just got a little clearance issue with the hose up there. I don't know if you can see it. The brake line, all I have to do is take that bracket and spin it forward. That should give me the clearance I need. But plenty of room for the 18s, so let's go check that out on the other side. And boom, look at that. That looks nice. Really like it. So now I'm gonna go on a drive. I'm gonna bed the brakes. I'll explain the process while we're in the car. But you wanna do this to put heat in them and get them straight. I guess if they're a little warped, they'll fix it. And also this black paint or whatever on the rotor, that's gonna come off. So it'll be nice and shiny and silver, just like the front, just like that. So let's go on a run, bed these brakes, and we'll finish off the video. All right guys, we're gonna start the process of bedding our brakes. So what we're gonna do is 8 to 10, you know, going from like 40 miles an hour down to like 25. Just easing on the brakes, giving it a little 10-15 second break between, and just trying to put some heat in the brakes. So it's pretty simple. We'll go over it a couple times. We got a couple camera views here so you can see what we're talking about. And yeah, so here we go. About 40 miles an hour. Ease on the brakes, ease on the brakes, ease on the brakes. Down to 25. Pick it up, give it a little brake. Down just a little bit. Trying to just put some heat in the brakes. Just going very slow, easing on the brakes, just trying to get them warm. Let them cool off a little bit. Like I said, it's going to wipe that black paint off the rotor, which is fine. It's going to make it nice and shiny. We got a car coming up, so I got to slow down. Perfect. Here first. Neat. Alright, we'll get a little more speed. Slow. Get some heat in here. We got a stop sign up here. We'll utilize that. That should be loud. Hopefully that works its way out, because that would be annoying. Alright, do about 45. And slow. Alright guys, gonna be doing a little bit of higher speed and stopping, so I'm gonna try and get to about 45-50 miles an hour. Slam on the brakes down to about 25-30 miles an hour. I did this little slow braking process like 10-15 times and it's still squeaky. So anyway, here we go. Go a little faster, slam on the brakes. We got some room here, so we're gonna make it happen. Alright, doing 55, and we will slam. Down to about 29. Come up here, we'll do it again hopefully, as long as we have the room. It wasn't loud at all when I did the front brakes. I don't know why it's doing it, but whatever. Alright, we're gonna come down this road here and see if we could do the same thing. Alright, we're doing 50 and let's see if we can do this. Down to 25. I'm going to do it about the same amount of times as I did with the, actually a little less than I did with the slower braking. I'm only going to do this about 7-8 times, so that's number 2 right there. There we go. About 50 miles an hour there, 53, and slam. Down to 25. Perfect. Alright, here we go. Alright, doing 52. Slam, 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 slam. 25. There we go. Cool. Alright, I got a traffic light coming up, so hopefully my squeaky brake issue went away. Hopefully it was just part of the break-in process. Like I said, front brakes didn't do it. They went as planned. Let the brakes cool off a little bit. And then we will do it again. The squeaky brakes went away. Yay! Guess just needed to be broken in a little bit. Now I don't know if this factored into it, but when I did the front brakes, sprayed it down with brake clean, the rotors, before we went out driving and didn't have a squeak. I did not do that with these because I figured the shit's gonna come off, so why bother? But the squeak is gone. But I will say I didn't test the full kit yet doing the brakes, like as far as like stopping power goes, because I haven't slammed on the brakes to stop yet. But there is a huge difference in the stopping power, I will say that. I mean, just doing the fronts was insane. This car is definitely a good time. It's definitely faster. You know what, before we cut out of here, we're gonna do a little rip. Going to third. Here we go. And brake, 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 brake. Alright, let's go home and finish off this video. Alright guys, that wraps up the rear brakes for the WILWOODs, and I gotta say I do like them. They are much stronger than the stock. They look great as well. They look great behind the wheel, and you know, I'm happy with it. It just, I know this is a longer video because installing the rear brakes was a much longer process than it was in the front, where the fronts just basically went on, and it was much easier. But obviously we had to cut, fabricate a little bit, and make things work. So overall I'm happy. So in the next video we're going to be doing the brake testing. We're going to be comparing the stock to the fronts, the front WILWOODs, and the front and the rear WILWOODs combined. We should see improved braking power, and being that we already did the stock to the front WILWOODs, big difference already. So you'll see that in the next video. And also got a couple other things, got other videos to make. I also got the SAP grills, because I read the comments and you guys are saying ditch these, get SAPs. I forked out the money for them, so I got them. Gonna do an install video on those eventually, and then we're gonna do some other videos too. We got some other things in the works that I can still do to this thing. And then I think I'm going to try and restore my Jeep. That's going to be after the GTO. So wish me luck on that one. That's like a dangerous game with that, because weather, factors in what happens with that. But anyways, as far as the GTO goes, it's riding great. I love it. The power's there. The braking power is now there to complement the additional power. So that's awesome. So anyway, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, like, comment. Tell me things that you would have done differently, or maybe you've done this before and did it a different way. Let the world know. This is just what I did, and I'm just showing you everything that I did. And I thank you for watching. So, till next time, see you in the next one. Pew.